Welcome to the MS&Me Radio Network. The broadcast shows are for informational and entertainment purposes only. They are not designed to provide listeners with specific personal, medical, or counseling advice. Individuals with a medical issue should always consult their healthcare provider. MS&Me is not responsible for content of individual shows. The views expressed by show hosts or the guests are their own. Enjoy the show.
Hey y'all, and welcome to Straight Up with MS and all its crazy little circles here on MS&Me Radio, brought to you by the MS Global Support Network. I'm your host, Patty Long, and you can find me on Twitter at MSinit for Life, and I spell that MSENIT, the number 4 LIFE. And I want to thank everybody who has followed me and who has become my friend on Twitter, because I love Twitter. Twitter is an amazing place, not just to discuss the stuff about MS, but to be silly and giggle and laugh and have fun on a bad day. You know, we all have those. And yesterday I spent the entire day on Twitter just goofing off with my friends on there, and it made my day better because I was having one of those really lousy pain kind of days. The temperature dropped by like 20 degrees, and whenever the temps drop like that, I become a human popsicle. I freeze, I shake, my muscle spasms go nuts, and it's just a really bad, uncomfortable day. So being on Twitter with these people and getting goofy and silly about everything is one way I combat that, because if you're laughing, you're not crying, and you just feel better if you're laughing. So anyways, I like Twitter. And I encourage you guys who haven't jumped on to Twitter to do so, because it's more spontaneous, more instantaneous, and there's way less drama on Twitter, unless you're like following politics or something. But it's way less drama than what you're going to find on Facebook. Part of that's probably because you only have so many characters, so you can't write some big, long, depressing thing. And, that's always nice when you're already, having these kinds of issues, not to be bombarded with more things that are just going to make you sad. So that's one of the good points. Now, on any social media, and it doesn't matter, and in person too, it really doesn't matter which way, you're gonna run into haters. Haters are gonna be haters. They're haters for a reason. They're hateful, and they like it. They enjoy being hateful, I believe. I think it makes them feel better about themselves if they're ragging on somebody else. So what can you do about the haters out there? Well, you can do like Dr. B did. He did a video just this past week about this very topic, and I kind of wanted to add to that because Aaron Boster MD is what he goes by on Twitter, and I mean on he goes by Aaron Boster MD on YouTube. And he's at Ohio Health MS on Twitter. And he's this awesome doctor who takes a lot of time to put together videos and to be on Twitter so that he can educate everybody in the MS community. Now, that's not to say he's giving out medical advice, because he can't do that if he's not your doctor. But what he can do is explain things, and what he's very good at is explaining things in simple ways. He uses language the same way I do. He puts things in terms that we can all understand instead of using the big long doctor words that people don't really know. especially when they're first starting out with this. So, he's fabulous. And then I see this video that he posted, and he's been getting bombarded with haters. And he said what he usually does is just delete their comments. And I'm thankful that he deletes their comments, because I read all the comments. When I watch his videos, I read every comment that's up there, and I look to see his answers, because he responds to everybody. So if you ask a generalized question, one that's not so specifically about you, but say you ask a question like, what meds are there for muscle spasms? He can give you a list of ones, and he will have a conversation with you. And I really like that. And he offers a lot of great tips for how to handle different issues that we have. So I was surprised when I heard that he was getting all these hater comments and then deleting them. And he apparently gets to them really quick, because I have never seen one. But he's this guy doing this out of the goodness and kindness of his heart, y'all. Not for money, not for attention, not for publicity. He's doing it to try and help us all understand this disease a little bit better than we do already. And he's really, really good at it. And, I thank him for deleting them, because if he left them, then I'd get really angry about it. And anger is a negative emotion. Now, it's a negative emotion that you can use to your advantage at times, because anger typically seems to give me, anyways, adrenaline. So, if I get really angry, I can use that extra adrenaline to work out a little bit longer, or to go for a longer walk, or just whatever. I can use that energy. But that's not good energy, y'all. That's not where we want to be. We don't want our mindset there in this anger situation. And, I know I'm not the only one that has had haters in my life. And recently, I had somebody on Twitter who jumped all over me because I'm pro DMT. Okay, your disease modifying therapy is very important. So if you've got a relapsing form of the disease, and now there's even one of these for primary progressive MS, which is just amazing to me, especially knowing Lori and seeing her improve the way she has. I strongly believe in DMTs, and you're not going to change my mind even if you're hating on me. If natural cures worked, and I repeat, if natural things worked, then MS would be gone. And they would have figured that out 100 and something years ago. It's not that simple a disease. And so you feel better if you're not overweight. Everybody does. You feel better if you're eating things that make you feel good instead of eating something that leaves you with heartburn or an upset stomach in some way, or that just puts you to sleep. So, your diet, your exercise, and all of that, those are good things, but they don't cure you at all, and they don't protect you at all. And a disease-modifying therapy, a DMT, is there to protect you. It protects you from future events. It doesn't do anything about the past events, but it protects you from the future events. So I had this hater comment come up. It's been quite a while back because I was very angry about it, so I didn't discuss it. I just shut down my Twitter for the day and moved on because I didn't want to look at it. But they were jumping all over me because I'm pro DMT. Really? If you don't like somebody's opinion, then there's no need to make hateful comments. You just move on. But this person was saying that they didn't like it, that I'm telling everybody take a DMT. Well, I tell you that because I know for a fact what happens when you don't. I was not diagnosed back when my MS first began. By the time my MS was found, by the time I even realized there was something wrong with me, because I didn't know, I was clueless, I didn't go doctor hopping trying to figure out what was wrong. But as soon as I found out that I had MS, my brain was already, and my spine, was already eaten alive by this disease. And the only reason why I'm here today is because I finally found the right doctor and the right DMT. Because my original neurologist was just a neurologist. He didn't specialize in MS. He saw patients with everything and anything to do with neurology. And that's a lot of different areas, a lot of different diseases, a lot of different issues. And so he was not a specialist, and he did not want to go with anything except for one of the very first DMTs because of their proven efficacy, meaning their safety record. Now, the newer DMTs don't have that proven safety record because they've not been out there long enough. But finding a DMT that stops the disease, that stops the relapses, that stops new lesions, that stops the inflammation is so, so important. You will feel so much better once you find the right one. Now, you may have to go through a lot of wrongs before you find the right one, but there is a right one. And it always concerns me when somebody is having relapses, even though they're on a DMT, because I know that with each relapse, you have worsening damage. That means you have more lesions, huge lesions, bigger lesions, I should say, or so much inflammation that it has caused you to have a relapse. So it's really important to be on one to protect yourself from these things, because with each one of these events, you lose a little more and a little more. Now, I started out with being blind, no legs, no arms, and no comprehension. I couldn't, I didn't understand what people were saying. The air even made me hurt. I live in the South, and we have heat pumps out here. So it's a dry air conditioning, and it was summertime. And so the air being so dry, it hurt. It physically hurt. So, clearly I had a very much more advanced disease process going on when my MS was found. And, had it been found 20 years earlier in the beginning, I wouldn't have had very many options for a DMT, but I still would have been very pro DMT because you want to protect yourself. That's what they're for, is to protect you. And it protects your future. If I had had one back then, when it first started, if I had realized there was something going on, which in my case, I was completely baffled and clueless. So, if you're having symptoms early on and your whole brain isn't white like mine was, and your spine isn't all white like mine was, then, that DMT will keep it from getting that way. So I am still very pro DMT. So what do you do about the hater? You ignore the hater. You delete their comments if you can. But you definitely ignore them, because haters like to hate. I've known people very well, have them in my car with me. I hate this, I hate that, I hate blah, blah, blah. I hate. And I remember asking somebody one time, is there anything you don't hate? Do you reckon you could tell me what you don't hate? Because all I've heard since you got in the car was I hate about everything. But haters will be haters. And I think that in their brains, if they're hating on you, it makes them feel better about themselves. Well, that's kind of a messed up way of thinking in my mind. So it's just so much better if you can get away from the haters. But on social media, you can't walk away. They're there, and if they make comments, you can ignore them. You can maybe delete them if you know how, but you'll see them first, So on social media, when somebody says something really rude and ugly to me because I recommend DMTs, I'm very pro DMT, I often want to be a smart aleck. And I want to point out the fact that natural cures don't work. If diet and exercise and all these natural products cured MS, then we'd all be cured. But they don't. It is not something that is being cooked up by the pharmaceutical companies for money. The pharmaceutical companies are actually trying to help us. And I think that in general, people like to blame the pharmaceutical companies, and it takes a lot of money on their end to come up with a medication. And the medication might be, something that works, and then they might have to go back to the drawing board. So there's a lot of money involved in the work that they're doing. But here's and that's why they're expensive, y'all. That's why they're expensive, And as a researcher, once upon a time, I know how much money it costs. So I know what goes into doing these kinds of big long-term studies. And it's amazing to me how many people blame the pharmaceutical companies and say things like, well, they found a cure a long time ago, but they're not sharing it with us because they'd lose all that money. No, they wouldn't. If they could cure us, they would, because there's a million other things that they could spend their money trying to find a cure for. But instead, they are focusing a lot of their money, a lot of their energy on this disease to try and help us. And, the problem that people have with getting their medications paid for isn't a problem that the drug company has made. It's a problem that was made by Medicare. Because if you're on private insurance, then you can get copay assist. And copay assist picks up the tab for anything and everything that your insurance doesn't pay for. But if you're on Medicare, they're not allowed to do that, because it states in the Medicare laws that there is a no-compete clause. And that no-compete clause eliminates their ability to help you by paying for your medications. So instead of hating on the pharmaceutical company because the medicine's expensive, try fussing at Medicare. Try telling all your senators, all your representatives, every politician in your area that this isn't right, that I am on Medicare, and that because of this clause, this no compete clause, my medicine, my out-of-pocket expense for this medicine is way beyond what I can afford. Get rid of the no compete clause and allow the drug company to pay for my medicine because they're more than willing. They want us to be our best. They are not trying to make us sicker. They're not trying to keep us sick. Because like I said, there's lots of other diseases out there that there's nothing out there for, including diseases that babies get and that babies have and that are killing babies. And yet they have nothing. So remember that before you go hating on the pharmaceutical company, that it's not their fault that they can't pay for your medication. That is something that if it's not happening, if you're not on private insurance and it's not happening, that needs to be taken care of through Medicare and through your senators and your representatives to try and get that law changed and get that clause taken out. And that way you could get your medicine in the same fashion I do. And, I don't pay a dime for my medication, and it's $5,000 plus a month, and I think all of them are that or more. And, because I'm on one of the lesser expensive medications, although it's a newer medication, and it works really well for me. So, I will stand by the fact that I am pro DMT. You do not want to wait until your brain and your body is as damaged as mine was 6 years ago and continually getting worse and worse and worse and worse, because my doc at that time was just a regular neurologist. He was not a specialist. So I also encourage you to find an actual specialist, someone who went past that area of expertise for neurology and specialized and went to school extra, took out more time, more loans, so they could become a specialist in MS, just like Dr. Aaron Boster. And I tell you what, it's appalling to know that there are so many haters in the MS community, but I know for a fact there are. And it's just, I don't even have words for it that I'm allowed to say on the radio, but it's just really, really bad, y'all. Don't be a hater. That negative emotion just carries over, and it's going to make you feel worse. It's not going to make you feel better. It's going to make you feel worse. You might feel empowered because you told me off or something about my opinion on DMTs, which, I have that opinion for a reason. And the doctors, they have that opinion for a reason as well, So, go to a specialist. There are not a lot of them. I know because I've looked and looked and looked and looked. And so I know there's not a whole lot of them. I have to travel 2.5 hours by car, which takes me more like 3.5 hours since I don't ride super well. But, I have to travel to get there. And it is worth it because the specialist was able to find me the right DMT to stop MS in its tracks. And I do mean in its tracks. I had one acute relapse at the very beginning of taking this new DMT, the Tecfidera that I'm on now. And I'm not recommending Tecfidera for everybody because it isn't for everybody. There is no single one medicine for everybody out there. So, but I started taking it, and I had my last acute relapse at the end of January, beginning of February, after being on this medication for 2 weeks. And that's just not long enough for it to be protecting me. And I knew that. I knew I wasn't yet protected, and my doc knew I wasn't protected. And so, I did my steroids. I get 5 doses of Solumedrol for these things, and that was actually the first time I stayed in the hospital for it, and that was just because they were expecting snow, and the doc was afraid I wasn't going to be able to get back for my next infusion, so they just kept me. But, these relapses, especially if you're encountering acute relapses, you want to stop. And the only way to stop them is with a DMT. So don't hate on me for saying, please take a DMT. Listen, because there's a lot of people out there who aren't. And they're not on a DMT because they think this natural stuff will cure them, and that the drug companies are all in cahoots to just make more and more money off of us. And they're not. They're there to help us. They are trying their best. Now, it's a business. It's a company, and companies are there to make money. But their primary goal is to help us to get better and be at our best. And I'm really excited every time I hear about a new one in the works, and maybe because I've heard they've got some that are testing well in mice models for regenerating the myelin, and that would be really cool. And I'm sure everybody would get super excited about that. Even the haters might get super excited about that. But if you don't like what I'm saying, you don't have to hate it. You don't have to say something nasty to me. Just ignore it. That's what people should do. But no, that's not what they do. So I ignore them, even though I'd like to be a smart aleck and say, gee, is that working for you? And wow, I wonder if you'll still feel the same way 20 years from now. Because honestly, I think they'll change their minds after they've gotten to the point where they're relapsing nonstop. And of course, my time is about up. But check out on YouTube, Erin Boster, MD. The two of us seem to share a lot of similar, if not exactly the same opinions on all of this stuff. So check him out. He's great, absolutely fabulous. His videos are 5 minutes or thereabouts to keep them digestible for us because, our attention spans and all that. And it's already time for me to go. So it's time for me to go already, y'all. Golly. So y'all have a great day. And don't be a hater, please. Instead, what do? We smile. And we smile often. And we smile big. And we laugh a lot. And we love ourselves. That's the most important thing. So for now, and until next week, bye.